Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the panel on energy security. This panel was co-sponsored by the Antalya Diplomatic Forum together with the Atlantic Council, and especially the Atlantic Council Turkey program that's been very active over the years promoting Turkey's role and Azerbaijan's role in European energy security, and we're very happy to have this panel here together. We're told that there's an energy transition. We hear that all the time from policymakers, journalists, think tankers, that energy transition is a fact. But in reality, 84% of global energy consumption is still fossil fuels. 75% of American energy consumption is still fossil fuels. We can't, usually an energy transition is catalyzed by some sort of technological change, right? So it's something like the development of the combustion engine enabled us to transfer from horses, to automobiles. There was a technological spark. For this so-called energy transition, we can't really name any technological spark that has brought us into a new era. So our policymakers have declared the energy transition, but we don't really see the technology basis for it. And in fact, even if you believe that we need to, regardless of what are the implications or what are the what are our resources, we need to do this to prevent climate change. Well, in fact, we've failed in any ways. If we just look at the 2021 record on global emissions, rose 6%, to the highest phase ever. We're actually, if we were to speak of an energy transition, it's actually right now from coal to natural gas. So we're having a return of use of coal in many places. Coal is at its highest price in decades. So if there is a trend in the markets, it's not going towards more cleaner fuels like natural gas or renewables, but right now towards coal. And this has huge national security implications. If we look at the current U.S. national security guiding document, the phrase energy security doesn't even appear. This used to be really a cornerstone of U.S. international policy, was U.S. and global energy security. And if we ask European policymakers, what do we do in the current crisis? Still the message is the same. Somehow more and more renewables. And even though obviously they know that today's renewables, current renewables, work on a base load of fossil fuels. It's not a binary choice of fossil fuels or natural gas. Today's renewables work together with natural gas. So it's not one or the other. Because of these principles of wanting to accelerate an energy transition, Europe over the years didn't commission new gas sources. Southern Gas Corridor received FID in 2013. It became operational in 2020. It's built to have double the current capacity of gas. More fields could have been developed over time, and Europe could be in a completely different situation, both in terms of price and in terms of national security. We're seeing a similar trend in the United States, where while every major source of oil producer has returned to the pre-COVID levels, the only major producer that hasn't bounced back to the pre-COVID levels is the United States. And this doesn't mean that people are using less oil, less gasoline. They're just using it from different producers in the Middle East, Russia, and others. So it's quite easy for us to just blame this on Russia. That's what we're hearing from our policymakers. This is the high price of gasoline is because of Putin. But one, we know that oil was $100 a barrel prior to the invasion of Ukraine, and that European gas prices were also at all-time highs prior to the invasion. And in fact, to even show that sorry about all the negativity here, right? But to show how we don't learn a lesson, 2020, we had a preview of the current energy crisis, when there was a cold spell simultaneously in Europe and Asia, and there was huge demand for liquefied natural gas, for LNG, and prices were exorbitant, and we saw, even on a small scale, power producers temporarily going over from gas to fuel oil. So seeing that when they couldn't afford the gas, they couldn't access the gas, you know, they actually accessed something that was much more environmentally destructive and higher emissions. So with this, I'll taking all these trends into consideration. I'd like actually to turn to our host, to Dr. Bayraktar, the Deputy Minister of Energy and Natural Resources of Turkey. And how does Turkey balance in this environment of, we're told we're in energy transition, pressure for an energy transition, but still in terms of the fuels that people consume and the prices, how has Turkey found a balance in its policies?
Thank you, Brenda. And also, first I would like to say I'm so happy to be here again this year's second forum. If you don't mind, I would like to also a little bit respond to the global energy transition thing, and I would like to come back to our journey, Turkey's energy transition journey. Energy transition is inevitable. It is happening slowly. It will happen. But the problem is, over the last almost 2 decades, we started seeing that the energy issues, energy discussions evolved from energy security to climate change and energy transition. But now we are seeing, especially after COVID, it goes back to, again, it's evolving again, energy security. And that's why today's panel also called Energy Security in Turmoil. Again, energy transition that we need related to fighting with climate change, global warming, and we need to decarbonize our energy system, we need to decarbonize our economies. But the question is how we are going to be able to do this. When we look at the market realities, as you rightly pointed out, that this transition is not happening or is happening very slowly. And the reason is, the major problem is that I think we need to describe the energy transition not only just a transition, but more smart energy transition. So that's why I call this smart energy transition over the last few months. And when I say smart energy transition that we need to have a successful and sustainable energy transition, it should be responsive, it should be rational, not emotional, which we are seeing a very emotional response. And third, we need a flexible energy transition. We need to be technology neutral, for instance, when I say flexible. And also we need to have a digital energy transition. These 4 things, it's a very essential, very important part of this energy transition. Unless otherwise that we're not going to be able to change this global scheme towards the energy transition. So these 4 elements, responsiveness, rationality, flexibility, and also digitalism is quite important. But more importantly, we need to have some political consistency. The major problem that we are having today is a policy-making problems. What we are giving as a signal to the markets, we have so many participants in this room coming from the industry, from the companies, investing in the field of energy, investing in different areas. What kind of signals that we are giving to the markets? 4 years ago, we said we will continue on coal, we will continue on fossil fuels, and then after Glasgow especially, we go back to the renewables again, energy efficiency, and many areas that related to low carbon. But then the signals we're giving to coal miners, to give oil and gas upstream companies that not to invest heavily on those areas. But without making investment, especially today, at least $450 billion to $600 billion on the oil and gas upstream, we cannot provide current output for 100 million barrels per day without, I'm talking about like a demand increase. So what we have to do is like we have to give the right signals to the market, but we have to be consistency on the policy side, policy makings, not to change very frequently. And we have to have a more smart energy transition policy. When it comes to Turkey, we are trying to combine everything because we have to do it. In Turkey, there's a demand growth, there's a high import dependency, so we cannot easily say no to coal. We cannot easily say to nuclear. In some countries they do. So we are trying to combine all these elements. And if you ask me which areas that you're focusing on energy transition, energy efficiency, renewables, we have a great potential and we would like to utilize all these sources. And third is nuclear. We would like to add nuclear into our energy mix. And lastly, we would like to have coal to gas transformation in energy market. That's why we are investing heavily on gas upstream project like we have done in the Black Sea. And I think I'll come back to that if we have time in the second round. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bayraktar. So Minister Pervez Shahbazov, Minister of Energy of the Republic of Azerbaijan. The Southern Gas Corridor was built with double the current capacity. Azerbaijan has fields that could be developed. There's additional fields in neighboring countries. But despite the availability of the gas and the infrastructure already reaching Europe, Europeans decided when the FID came in 2013 just to keep this sort of modest amount of gas. Now it seems that pretty much Azerbaijan is being courted by many gas buyers in Europe, many countries. What do you see as the role for natural gas in the future in Europe and regionally?
Thank you very much, Brenda. And I would also like to express my gratitude to the organizers of this excellent event. And I'm for the first time in the Antalya Diplomatic Forum, and I find this forum as an excellent platform for discussing the pressing issues. And as this very well known, energy is today the issue which really needs the international discussion and seeking the ways how to deal with the energy crisis we have already for some period of time. And bütün Türk kardeşlerimi de ben buradan salamlamak
I also
isterim
would like to
bir
salute
daha.
my Turkish brothers and sisters.
And I would like also to say a couple of words about the energy policy of Azerbaijan. And of course, when we talk about the energy projects which have been initiated by Azerbaijan, we cannot avoid but talk about the very close brotherly cooperation with Turkey on this field, because be it the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan or Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum or Southern Gas Corridor, all these mega projects have been initiated by Azerbaijan but have been implemented in a very, very close partnership with Turkey. And today, all those projects have been shown the very effective the implementation of all those purposes we have had from the very beginning. And the cooperation in the field of energy remains as an important priority in our relations between Azerbaijan and Turkey. And just 2 days ago, President Ali visited in Ankara the President the Erdogan, and they also had the talks, and energy was one of the main issues for future cooperation. And coming back to your question, I would like to mention that Southern Gas Corridor has already proved to be a very successful project, because it has already in function, and the first gas already through Turkey to Europe has been already supplied on the last day of the 2020, and up to now we have already provided for 9.7 BCM to our European partners. And this year we provide the 8.2 BCM to Turkey. Next year it's going to be even bigger, up to the 9.5 BCM. And at the same time, our gas supplies to Europe will also increase by the next year. So, but as you very correctly mentioned in the beginning, that the Southern Gas Corridor has the bigger capacity, and now it is right time to sit and work together and discuss the extension of this project, because all prerequisites are there. The huge resources of natural gas are in the Azerbaijani sector of the Caspian Sea. The infrastructure is in place. The consumers are in need also for the consumption, the natural gas, and we are already in contact. And the energy companies are showing great interest to work with us. So I think this is the very well opportunity, and also the good timing to seriously start to work on the further development of this very important project, which is in its nature very unique, because it gives the opportunity for the diversification of all the aspects of the sources, of routes, even of suppliers and consumers. Through the different interconnector, we can reach the different regions of Europe again. And at the same time, we can talk about the diversification of the natural resources, because we already think about supplying the hydrogen through this infrastructure. This is another important aspect, which is also coincides with the green policies in Europe. But if I have just a second, I would like also to apply to the global energy crisis, which we are living through for the moment. Yes, we are facing this problem, and actually the three well-known dimensions of the energy dilemma, let's say so. This is the energy security, this is the accessibility or affordability, and also the sustainability. The balance between all of them has been disrupted for the moment, and we have to sit and think what we can do in order to bring the balance again to the energy markets, because the energy, the security is impacting, you know, in the way that first these energy transition issues and some political decisions, I would say the rigid political decisions that have brought us to the energy crisis, and on the other hand, of course, at the international arena, which we see political tensions, even military conflicts, and all this, of course, bring us to another problem, which is connected with the energy prices. And we have now the historical high of the energy prices that just have had, and probably will have also in the future. And of course, the main problem is the energy supply gaps, and at the same time, the real deficit of the energy resources. So I think here I will stop, and looking forward to the further discussions.
Okay, thank you, Minister Shahbazov. And I think his point about the balance with energy security being composed of availability of resources, affordability and environmental sustainability, that we have to have a balance. We can't just have one of the aspects. I think that's a very important point. Ambassador Matthew Bryza, in addition to having served as U.S. Ambassador to Azerbaijan, also very senior positions in the White House and the U.S. Department of State related to Turkey, to the Caucasus, and really himself almost with a shovel, building the Southern Gas Corridor yourself. The activists of the energy transition put all fossil fuels in one basket. They want us to not use oil, coal, and natural gas. But obviously natural gas is an exception. Almost very low environmental impact and lower climate impact than oil and coal. Should we be treating natural gas differently and include natural gas as not just a transition fuel, but really part of the fuel of the next decades of our economies?
Thanks, Brenda, for such a thoughtful question and for all the years of helping me think more deeply. And thanks to Defne as well, our fearless leader for the Atlantic Council in Turkey, for organizing this, and thank you for letting me be part of it. As we were discussing yesterday, I strongly believe that we're not going to ever get to the energy transition, whatever that means, without natural gas. We have to build more natural gas power plants. We have to deliver the gas to the markets, and I think that Minister Shapazo's balance of those three elements, as you just said, Brenda, are exactly right. I mean, we need accessibility so that there's no longer, or there's less energy poverty. We need affordability, and we're seeing that now. I'm going to come back to that in a second. And sustainability. And so to give a sense of how important a role that natural gas can play in energy transition, look back to a decade or so ago when in the United States, by the way, a technological revolution that is helping the energy transition, right? The revolution in horizontal well drilling and fracking. So when the U.S. was deploying that technology, everyone in this room knows it's led to the U.S. becoming the world's largest producer of both oil and natural gas. Not the largest exporter, but the largest producer. And so as the U.S. production was ramping up of natural gas, coal consumption went down just because gas was cheaper. And so what happened to that coal, that much dirtier coal, at least 4 times dirtier than natural gas is coal, right? With all due respect to Turkey, I know you've got a lot of coal mines here, but it's a scientific fact. So that coal was being bought largely by German companies. And so Germany invested so much money in the Energiewende, right? They were the first major country to invest so heavily in renewable energy. And successfully, I mean, they developed some really important technologies that are now becoming commercial. But because Germany bought that dirty US coal, and the US was burning its own natural gas, at that point, you remember the Kyoto Protocol, the US never signed up, but the US was actually hitting the targets that it would have aimed for had it signed up to Kyoto.
And emissions lowered under the Trump administration that actually was, you know, against the policies, but still emissions continued to decline.
Down. Exactly, exactly. Because science and business investment works sometimes. And then Germany, which invested so much in renewables, was not hitting their Kyoto targets. They're the ones who said, we're committed to Kyoto. They were missing the targets because they were burning US coal. The US didn't care about Kyoto. It was hitting its targets because it was burning its own natural gas. So that, to me, that's a compelling example of how important natural gas is going to be to the energy transition. So that's on the sustainability side. And then on the affordability side, and getting back to what you were saying, Mr. Minister, about the proper signals from the policy community to the market. Think back to Glasgow. Everybody on Earth was talking practically about how important it is that we meet our energy transition goals, net carbon zero by 2020. There was a big debate about whether or not we went far enough. But you could see already that activist shareholders at major, super major international oil and gas companies, or regulatory policies, let's say by the Netherlands government, or just the policy decisions being made by BP and Bernard Looney, were moving away from oil, but more and more toward natural gas and toward renewables as well. And it seemed like consumers, all of us out there, were happy. It's a good news story. We're on our way to the energy transition. Look, it's affordable, because another technological innovation in the last decade or so had been a severe decrease in the cost of turbines and of solar panels. And then we start to get this big increase in energy prices, as you rightfully pointed out, Brenda, before the Russia-Ukraine crisis or war or invasion. I mean, that was for a number of reasons, right? In Norway, I see Erling, fantastic ambassador of Norway. There were maintenance slowdowns. Europe had a longer winter, so there was less gas available in storage. Maybe Gazprom wasn't willing to exceed its contractual obligations and ship more gas while it filled its own storages. And then we had a really rapid economic recovery, faster, I think, than a lot of people discovered, and supply chain problems, etc. So we had a big spike in natural gas and oil prices, and record prices for natural gas. Granted, as tension was heating up in the Russia-Ukraine fiasco, but there were other reasons out there why the prices were increasing. And then now the biggest story politically in the US is, oh my God, look how expensive energy is. Look how expensive gasoline is. You've got the Biden administration and the president himself who are really worried about the upcoming midterm elections when the Democrats are likely to lose both houses of our parliament, both the Senate and the House. And the biggest issue is inflation, right? And so increasing energy prices impact everything practically in our economy because it's an important input. So now we consumers are saying, whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a second, that energy transition stuff, yeah, that's important, but hang on. If I have to pay $10 more to fill up my gas tank, I'm not for that energy transition maybe. We need more oil. We need more gas. Maybe we need more coal. So we all, I think, here have an obligation, since we all care and everybody out here is influential, in helping the broader populations we come from pursue that balance that Minister Shakazov was talking about. We need accessibility so everybody has the energy that they need, no matter their income levels. It needs to be affordable, and working with technology and smart investment, we'll get there. And it needs to be sustainable. We've got to do all of those things at the same time. Thank you. But natural gas is absolutely essential.
Thank you, Matt. Very interesting. If I could just follow up, because you've been discussing U.S. policy. So, as I pointed out in the introduction, all major oil producers have come back to pre-COVID levels, except for the United States. And in fact, it's not that we need to just get to pre-COVID levels of production. Demand for oil has grown, actually, in response to COVID policies. People are averse to use public transportation. You probably see it in your own lives, your own decisions with your families, not wanting to be exposed potentially to the virus. And also higher use of plastics. You have them on your face right now. You have them in your sanitizer, in the medical equipment. So if there was a trend of declining use of plastics that we've now post-COVID where we're actually increased use of plastics, doesn't seem it's going to go away. Yet, as part of the so-called energy transition policies, the US and earlier Europe have really suppressed development of their own domestic production, which means that we're just using more oil and gas from other sources. Do you, and we can even see a very good example. Last year, 2021, there were two big investment rounds, one in FID in Uganda, $10 billion, another a round of licensing in Brazil, which attracted, I believe, $30 billion. So meaning the market wants to invest in oil and gas, but not in the United States. The United States has become the risky place to invest. What's the role of policy here? How does this change?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's tough for investors to feel secure or trust when if the administration in Washington is trying to suppress oil and gas investment and reduce production, while at the same time it's going out to other countries, whether it's Saudi Arabia or now Venezuela or maybe even Iran, and saying, if there's not going to be Russian oil imported, we need to keep inflation lower, so maybe we need to re-engage with these countries. So those are confusing signals. But there's also just a signal sent by the market and by private equity and by shareholders who didn't like the way the shale patch in West Texas or in the Dakotas or Pennsylvania were being developed. So for years and years, investors were pumping in a lot of cash just for maximal growth of production. And they got tired of not getting any return on their investment. So now they're demanding that there be a return and that the development not be so breakneck, and so that it makes more sense from their perspective as investors, which is fair, it's their money, but it's not so good for the rest of us in terms of accessibility and affordability of energy.
So I'm going to turn now to Dr. Bayraktar. So in this current energy crisis, global energy crisis, despite, of course, also difficulty for the citizens of Turkey, but you've weathered it much better than most of your European neighbors. One of the reasons it seems to be that you have a very diversified gas market, and that instead of just leaving yourself to the whims of spot prices, you have mostly long-term contracts which guarantee you access to gas at a predictable price. So you have a lot of new resources actually around Turkey, your own Black Sea discoveries, which I congratulate you on. As Minister Shahbazov pointed out, the second stage of development of Shahdanis and other Azerbaijani resources in the Caspian. You just had the visit of the President of Israel in Ankara, hosted by the President Erdogan. Maybe this would renew the process of Israeli gas resources reaching Turkey. What's Turkey's policy and plan for all these new gas options?
Brenda, I mean, to understand our gas strategy, I think you need to go back to 2016, like 6 years ago, when we decided to change our gas strategy towards more diverse energy resources, to diverse our routes and countries to supply gas to Turkey. But first and foremost, gas is extremely important for Turkish energy market, extremely important for Turkish economy in general. We consume gas in households. When Justice and Development Party, AK Party, came to power in 2002, President Erdogan, at that time Prime Minister Erdogan, was set an important goal for the energy ministry and for the energy officials, that we are going to bring gas each and every household in Turkey. This is, I mean, if you consider the size and scale of Turkey, it's a huge target. And as of today, 81% of the population in Turkey has access to gas. So household is a growing area in terms of gas consumption, and we will bring gas to our citizens. Second area is industry. Since we have a very strong, very capable of manufacturing industry, that we produce a lot, we consume a lot of gas. This is another area that we are consuming gas. And the third area is power generation. Unfortunately, there is an inextricable link between power generation and gas consumption, because it's, in some years we consume almost 45% of, we produce gas, we produce electricity from gas almost 45%, 48%. And we're trying to reduce this, obviously, because we are importing almost 99% or entire need of gas supply to Turkey. So this is the demand side, growing market, and as of 2021, we consume 60 BCM gas, I think fourth largest in Europe, so we are heavily consuming gas. And when it comes to supply side, we are 100% rely on imported resources. We have some reliable suppliers like Azerbaijan. Gazprom was always a reliable supplier to Turkey over the last 3.5 decades. And Iran also supply gas to Turkey. But what we have done in 2016, we decided to invest heavily on infrastructure side. What we have done, we increased our regasification capacity. In a very short period of time, we added FSRUs to our regasification terminals. We quadrupled our regasification capacity from 30 million cubic meter per day to 130 million cubic meter of day. And as of last year, 2021, the utilization rate of Turkey's LNG infrastructure was 80%. So we're supplying one tanker after another to Turkish LNG terminals. Gas pipeline infrastructure, gas underground storage infrastructure. So we are still heavily investing on those areas. Plus, we finalized and completed TANAP very successfully, as Excellency Minister Shahbazov said. 2018, there is a gas flow started, and also we completed TurkStream very short period of time, starting from 2017 to 2020. So now we receive gas from Russia without having a transit route through Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, and Bulgaria. So we started to invest heavily on infrastructure. And one other element that we try to address this gas need in Turkey, that we, as I mentioned earlier, that we are still investing on our offshore upstream activities, and luckily and finally we were able to find a gas in the Black Sea region, in the Black Sea field, Sakarya gas field, in the year 2020. It was the largest offshore global discovery in the year 2020 in the middle of pandemic. And the key message here, we had a medium-term and long-term strategy on the upstream activities. Each and every company, and I'm not blaming to anyone, but in the middle of pandemic, the oil prices went down, gas prices went down, everybody stopped investing on the upstream, but we continue with the Turkish Petroleum, our state-owned company, and it paid off. We found large reserves, and now we are at the stage of production of these reserves, and hopefully next year we are going to bring the first molecule to Turkish energy market. So this is an important element of our gas strategy, and hopefully in the year 2025, 2026 we will be able to supply 15 to 18 billion cubic meter of gas to Turkish grid. But as I explained, we need more gas, we need additional gas, and then it comes to the existing suppliers that we might have additional gas. But also, as you pointed out rightly, there are abundant gas around Turkey. I mean, Azerbaijan has additional resources in Caspian Sea. Turkmenistan has a huge potential. And Iraq would be an interesting option for Turkey in terms of gas. And not only for Turkey, but through Turkey, like we have done in the TAP, through Turkey to European market. So Turkey is playing a key role to security of supply of gas for Europe. And one last point, and maybe more mature gas fields is Leviathan and offshore Israel, which we basically, again, part of this changing strategy in 2016, we negotiated gas from Israeli offshore to Turkey in 2017 and 2018. But unfortunately, commercially, we were not able to finalize this deal. But again, when you look at the developments in the market, the need of gas for Turkey, for Europe, and diversification purposes, I think it's worth to again reconsider and get back together, especially after the visit of Israeli President Herzog to His Excellency President Erdogan. I think it would be again a good opportunity to look for alternatives, because as Excellency Minister Shahbazov mentioned, that TANAP and TAP, it was extremely important project, because can you imagine, like 6 different countries, 6 different jurisdictions, legal regime, environmental impact assessments, and we all have, these all have been done successfully, completed, and now it's operational. But only 50% of utilization rate, which means there is a spare capacity, almost 15, 16 BCM, but what we need is additional gas. So wherever it comes from, the infrastructure is there. I think we did the most difficult part to have this pipeline ready. And then we need additional gas, and it's worth to look for the alternatives.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, definitely Europe is looking for new sources of gas, and obviously the Southern Gas Corridor will have a comparative advantage, not only with the reliability, with a sense of trust for the producers and the transit countries, and the access to new fields, but actually with all the difficulties of permitting, and you know, the fact that it actually exists, that it reaches Italy's shores, it gives it a huge comparative advantage. So, Minister Shahbazov, where do you see the Southern Gas Corridor bringing in not only new Azerbaijani production, but from additional countries, and what is your country doing to facilitate those new gas sources into Europe?
As I have already mentioned in my previous comments, the Southern Gas Corridor is indeed a gas corridor, which is actually opens a lot of opportunities. for, among others, also for different suppliers. So, of course, it is possible, and but it should be economically beneficial, feasible, and it should be discussed. But in principle, it is an option also for the Southern Gas Corridor, and it has been also designed in a way that in the future, during its second phase and extension, to get possible new suppliers.
Thank you. So we're actually going to open it up now to the audience. Would love to hear your questions, comments to any of our panelists. Is there a microphone that can go to the? Let's see here on the right. And please say your name and please stand up and say your name and where you're from.
Hello, my name is İsmail Utku Cantürk. I am an international relations PhD student from Akdeniz University, and thank you. I want to say thank you so much for all your contributions. It was a very informative discussion too. Thank you to all of our distinguished participants. My question is going to go to Mr. Bayraktar. And as we know, Turkey ratified the Paris Agreement back in October 2021, and on the other hand, a lot of countries around the world are constantly updating their pledges of carbon neutrality or quote-unquote postponing it to further dates. And we know that we have a cabinet-approved date of 2053 to reach carbon neutrality. I would like to ask to Mr. Bayraktar, how realistic is that target in terms of our renewable energy capacities and the roadmap we have for the decades to come? Thank you so much.
Thank you, and it's a kind of trillion-dollar question. It's a huge challenge ahead of us. As you rightly said, October 2021, our Parliament ratified the Paris Agreement with a condition that I have to, again, for the record, I have to mention about it. And the Parliament said very clearly that Turkey is going to implement Paris Agreement as a developing country, and without giving up our economic growth right and social growth right. So this was a very clear message from the Parliament, because as you know well, the taxonomy of the countries in the Paris Agreement coming from UNFCCC was not a very fair treatment to Turkey. But right after this ratification process, President Erdogan announced the carbon neutrality target for Turkey in 2053. It was even bigger challenge for after Paris Agreement implementation, because in 30 years' time, to decarbonize our economy is quite challenging, and it's not only energy we are discussing here. Agriculture, transportation, buildings, industry, and many cross-cutting sectors we are discussing. So we need a complete paradigm change. What we are doing in the field of energy, I cannot talk on behalf of transportation, of course, or agriculture or industry, but when it comes to energy, I don't want to make the announcement from here, because it needs to be made by our minister and maybe President Erdogan even, that we will announce soon our long-term energy policies and targets for reaching 2053 carbon neutrality in Turkey. But early findings in our model shows that Turkey needs to build tens of thousands of solar photovoltaic panels. Turkey needs to build almost 100,000 megawatts of wind power generation. Turkey needs to build additional nuclear reactors besides Akkuyu. And energy efficiency and many other fronts that we need to develop more and more to reach, at least decarbonize our energy markets. Electric vehicles infrastructure. So there are so many things needs to be done. The question, that's why I said like a trillion-dollar question, is like how we are going to finance those investments, how we are going to be able to have a just and smooth transition. Because everybody is in this room, consumers, you are paying electricity bills, and I see, and we keep hearing then some complaints about the electricity prices, the gas prices, gasoline prices in Turkey. So we need to find the right balance to have this transition in a smoother way. Maybe one last point that I would like to make here regarding renewables. Thousands of new capacity we need to add, but how we are going to be able to find these equipments, photovoltaic panels. Whether we are going to import from photovoltaic panels, wind turbines from different sources, not so many different sources we have. And if you consider the supply chain disruption and problems in the world right now, we have to also consider to produce locally and manufacture locally in Turkey. We need to, I mean, this is not only Turkey's problem, but the global problem that we need to find some regional manufacturing hubs for equipments. This is quite important, and we need to make it. I think, Brenda, you know, you need to emphasize this. We need to make it in a more decarbonized way, because when you produce renewables, you also make some additional emission for producing these equipments. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a few headlines here. So one, we need a complete paradigm change, and I hope a lot of countries will think about that, not just Turkey. I think there's geopolitical implications to what you're saying about bringing manufacturing of renewable energy products or hardware to Turkey, and it not being just in China, for instance, where essentially we might be just exchanging, for instance, Russian gas with Chinese minerals and manufacturing products with all the geopolitical implications. And another point that Minister Bayraktar alluded to, that, you know, we often, or policymakers maybe bring us to, we use the words clean energy, low carbon, and green energy interchangeably, but they're not. And a lot of the production of renewable energy has high environmental impact. You know, the largest source of low carbon energy, renewable energy in the world is hydropower, which of course has very strong environmental impact. So do we have some more questions from our audience? Okay, yes. Please say your name and stand up.
Hi everyone, I'm Nurbanu Bulgur. I'm attending from Sakarya University. I am a PhD candidate and I'm working and studying on environmental security actually. That's why I'm really interested in these issues, sustainability especially. You are, all of you, focused on sustainability and the other issues. That's why I'm gonna ask about this issue. You know, the 11th development plan of Turkey is focusing on the sustainable development actually. And my question goes to Mr. Bayraktar. Is there any attempt to protecting sustainability and providing cooperation between private sector and state-affiliated sector or factory, you may say? And is there any measure that states take to protect this process? And maybe Mr. Shahbazov can answer this question in terms of Azerbaijan. Thank you for your listening to me.
Okay, Minister Shahbazov. Well, actually, since becoming Minister of Energy in Azerbaijan, has given a huge push for renewable energy in Azerbaijan, and also President Aliyev, after the liberation of Azerbaijan's territories from Armenia's occupation, declared the newly liberated zone a green zone, and already seen a lot of emphasis in the new energy plans in the liberated territories. So, Minister Shahbazov.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you very much for the question. Of course, environmental security is absolutely important, and we all have to take care about that. But the energy transition should be implemented in a way that we are able to strike a balance between the energy security and the environmental security, and it would be the right way to go, because otherwise it will bring us to the situation when we then will be, as we saw it in Europe last year, we started to utilize coal again. So we returned to coal, and that's why the violation between these two dimensions. How we deal it in Azerbaijan? As Ms. Schaffer just mentioned, the renewable sources of energy have become one of the priorities of the social economic development of Azerbaijan, defined by President Aliyev. And the Karabakh region as itself, after the liberation, has been announced by him as the green energy zone. And today we plan there the production of electricity only 100%, only from the renewable sources of energy. And we even plan it in a way that we can also transport this green energy into the rest of the country. And Azerbaijan has, and here maybe, Brenda, we don't have to talk only about gas, because, for example, in the Caspian Sea, in the Azerbaijani sector, we have another huge energy potential. It is more than 150 gigawatts of offshore wind, which, by the way, we also now plan to use for our national demand, but at the same time to export to our partners. We were last time also discussing these issues with our Turkish colleagues, and for example, to the Turkish energy market, or to the European energy market. At the end of the day, why the gas is so much needed in Europe or in Turkey, among others, also to produce electricity, but we can also supply the electricity and plus green electricity from Azerbaijan, and we are working on this project together. And I think that this project will be implemented in future, as we have done all projects with oil and gas. This is our future plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bayraktar.
Look, we had a climate summit in Konya. I'm not sure whether you follow that or not, but my personal perception in Turkey, I'm not so very environmentalist, because sometimes when you speak against this sustainability or environmental sustainability issue, often people treat you like you are against environmental issues, you are not taking it environmentally friendly. First of all, for the record, I'm not that kind of person, so you have to take it from my word. But the reason that I'm saying this, I'm trying to be more rational and more realist, and because at the end of the day, to have an environmental sustainability, you have to have economic sustainability. From that standpoint of view, that's why I said we need to have a smart energy transition, to have a smooth energy transition. And it's not going to be overnight. You cannot phase out coal immediately or in a very short period of time. You have to have it in your system. Per capita consumption of Turkey in terms of electricity, it's around like a 4,000 kilowatt hour. In Europe, it's 6,500 kilowatt hour. In US, it's a 14,000 kilowatt hour. When you compare this, and in Africa, in Southeast Asia, 700 million people doesn't have access to electricity. So we need to have a just energy transition, and of course the fear and the concern I have here, that in case if you don't have that kind of aspect, you might see huge political setbacks. Now we are facing this because everybody is turning not against environmental concerns, but there's an obvious need for energy access, affordable access, reliable access to energy. And one last point that I would like to make here, that we need to find again right balance to find and optimize solutions for everybody, for all citizens in Turkey and the globe.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your thought. I have a question for the Minister of Azerbaijan. After the frozen of the Nord Stream, after the crisis in Ukraine, after the period that we are for sure going in the future, how you will change your strategy in terms of the gas supply for Europe and other countries? What is your short, medium and long-term new strategy, if you will have a new strategy?
Thank you very much for the question. In fact, we have had already for the long time plan to extend the Southern Gas Corridor, as it has already been here widely discussed, because of the several factors. First of all, we have enormous gas resources in Azerbaijan, offshore gas resources. So it is 2.6 trillion proven gas reserves. It would, enough for us and for our partners, for Turkey and in Europe, to provide with the natural gas for the next 100 years. We have infrastructure in place, and we have now the increased interest from the consuming countries. And if we bring all of them under the same roof and sit and discuss, so we will come out with the decision to extend further the Southern Gas Corridor. As it has already been here mentioned, the TANAP, Trans-Anatolian Pipeline, has a capacity till 31 BCM. TAP has till 20 BCM. So I am not talking about the long-term, the perspectives and projects. It can be done in a mid-term, the perspective. But we have to also understand that the gas is the commodity, natural gas is the commodity that cannot be extracted and delivered overnight. So we cannot act in a way that today there is a enhanced need for natural gas, tomorrow we add some more volumes to there. We can do it, and we do it for our neighboring countries in our vicinity, and we did it, for example, with Turkey when the Turkish-Iranian pipeline was technically disrupted. We did it, but we cannot provide for the big volumes for Europe. We have to have good planning for that. We are ready for that, and we have already established a dialogue with the European Union and the other interested parties, the consuming countries, and of course with our brotherly country, Turkey, and we will work on it.
Thank you. And I think following up here, there's an important point on market design. The gas the infrastructure is there, the gas is in the ground, but the European Union decided no more long-term contracts, it should all be spot market, but that doesn't work with the gas industry. You have to be able, you have to plan and to buy the gas ahead of time. And if we look at the 10 points that Europe, the EU, the Commission has published about how to change and to encourage its energy security, it actually kept no long-term contracts as part of the points. But it's a very fundamental issue that Europe's really going to need to change if it wants to provide for its energy security. So I think, believe it or not, an hour has gone by. Obviously, we have a lot of important issues. I'd like to give each of our panelists a final moment of, Matt, can you what should we be doing?
Sure. Well, I just would like to comment really briefly on the European Union, building on what you said and to wrap up my thoughts. So for years, we in Washington were pushing our allies in the EU to focus more on diversifying their supplies of energy, and really of natural gas. And in the beginning, they didn't want to hear it. And I remember going to see a deputy minister of economy in Germany who very politely showed me the door and said, stay out of our business. That's changed. And what I heard President of the European Commission von der Leyen saying yesterday at the meeting in Versailles was really encouraging. So she seems to be thinking about all these things we're talking about. She said that we need to diversify European sources of supply, which has been our mantra. We need more LNG. We need to get rid of Russian gas in the mix in the next 5 years. And we need to do renewables. But it's got to be affordable. It has got to provide, it's got to respond to supply and demand signals in the market. So I hope that that's the approach the EU continues to follow, along with what they've invested in over the course of the last decade, which is all sorts of new infrastructure to interconnect national gas grids, which again will allow natural gas to respond to market forces of supply and demand. If the market is liquid, it'll work well. But there are market inefficiencies and failures that lead to some of these disruptions we see now. Thank you.
And you know, even on the issue of market design, the spot markets actually gave more power to the swing producer.
Yes,
that it's so. Minister Shahbazov, your final comments.
Thank you. We have been already run out of time. That's why I will try to formulate in a very, very compact way. So what we need very well thought out energy policies, long-term energy policies, and we need really to keep the issues of energy security, of course, along with other components of the energy issues, at the focus of the international, at our international agenda and the focus of all the states. It is important. We should not underestimate the role of the one kind of energy resources and give the priority to other. We really need the smart, as it has already been here said, smart energy transition and energy mix. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Shahbazov. Dr. Bayraktar.
Thank you, Brenda. Just, I would like to echo what Matt said about the Europe strategy. Look, I mean, we have a working example in TANAP and TAP, and what we have seen for this project, a great leadership and commitment from both leaders, President Aliyev and President Erdogan, and also all the countries like Georgia, Greece, Albania, and Italy. They took this initiative, and also European Commission and US put a lot of effort and commitment to this project, support this project, and it made it happen. So we can follow up the same steps for the other resources in and around the Turkey to bring this hydrocarbon resources to Turkey and through Turkey to European market. I think it's an essential thing. And last point, I hope in this panel we haven't drawn a very gloomy picture about the energy transition. We can be optimistic. Instead, of course, I mean, being a hopeless romantic, I prefer to being like a more rational optimist. And the optimistic part that keep us, more positive for the future is I fully believe in technology. I fully believe in science, innovation, and invention. And I believe that this will make some technological breakthroughs, some innovation and inventions will make it possible for our world will be a better future in terms of energy transition, in terms of climate change, and fighting with global warming. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 3 countries represented here: United States, Turkey, Republic of Azerbaijan, that really understood that energy security is part of national security, and it has to be planned. We heard the ideas of balance between the different aspects of energy security, and important that, yes, it's good to have idealism and goals, but if you're too idealistic, if you're a hopeless romantic, instead of more renewables, you end up with more coal. So if you could please join me in thanking this panel, and it was great to have you here with us today.